Let's get the obvious part out of the way first. Jake Paul was brutally stopped in round 6 by Anthony Joshua. There's no debate about the ending, there's no debate about who was hurt, there's no debate about who the better fighter was by the end of this fight, and frankly, before the fight ever happened by most people. But that's not actually the question here. The real question is, did Jake Paul win any rounds before this stoppage? Because his brother Logan claims Jake won 4 rounds or at least 3 rounds. And if that sounds crazy to you, stay with me because we're not guessing and we're not arguing opinions. In this video, I'm scoring every single round using the same algorithm I use for all of my breakdowns: clean punching, effective aggression, ring generalship, and defense. By the end, you'll see exactly whether Jake Paul won 0 rounds, 1 round, or more rounds than most people are willing to admit. Make sure to subscribe now, click one of my playlists, and let it roll. I'm starting to compile a real growing library of all your favorite fights broken down, round by round, scored correctly. Round 1, clean punching. Now don't expect the clean landed punch totals that you see in my other fight breakdowns, you're not going to see them here. Anthony Joshua lands 2 clean landed punches and Jake Paul lands 4. Clean punching, 10-8, Jake Paul. Effective aggression. At 1:31 on the clock, a mutual clinch and Jake Paul inexplicably falls down like one of those fainting goats. Anthony Joshua wasn't very effective in cutting off the ring or pinning down Jake Paul, even though he pursued consistently. I'm trying something new in this video and it's an effectiveness score. So the way that I calculate that is, in the past, I've only counted defensive moves if they avoid punches. I've changed that to count them if they avoid punches or aggressive advances of some kind, so we can determine whether those aggressive advances were effective. So the effectiveness score in this round shows Jake Paul avoiding more of Anthony Joshua's punches and aggressive advances than vice versa. Jake Paul wasn't aggressive often at all, moving elaborately for most of the round, but he was effective with a few occasional sudden punches. Effective aggression, 9 points to Jake Paul, 8.5 to Anthony Joshua. Ring generalship. Jake Paul started the round moving away all around the larger 22-foot by 22-foot ring that was stipulated for this fight, so he wasn't forced into this tactic by Anthony Joshua, it was done by choice. Anthony Joshua spent the whole round trying to find Jake Paul. Jake controlled action and tone by enforcing his evasive plan while still landing more punches. Ring generalship, 10-9, Jake Paul. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done to avoid punches or aggressive advances in this round. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to both fighters, ducking to Jake Paul, bobbing and weaving to both fighters, parrying to Anthony Joshua, blocking to Jake Paul, footwork to Jake Paul, and clinching to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.338 points to Anthony Joshua and 9.390 points to Jake Paul. Amazingly, Jake Paul wins round 1 on my scorecard, 10-9. I wasn't able to find the official judges' scorecards anywhere online yet, and this seems to happen a lot with Netflix-based fights that I've seen thus far, so I can't compare my running score to theirs. I will give you just mine. I want you, however, to drop a comment below on whether you felt Jake Paul won that first round, or he ran too much and he should not win the first round. Round 2, clean punching. In this round, Anthony Joshua lands 5 clean landed punches and Jake Paul lands 4. The running total in the fight thus far, an amazing Anthony Joshua 7, Jake Paul 8. Clean punching, 10-9, Anthony Joshua. Effective aggression. There was a head clash at 1:19 on the clock. At 53 seconds on the clock, Anthony Joshua leads with the head when he can't get out of Jake Paul's clinch any other way. I'd give a soft warning for this. At 26 seconds, Jake Paul with a right hook to the thigh in the clinch. Soft warning for him as well. Joshua's following Jake Paul and trying to catch him. Jake Paul is staying away actively and landed mostly only in the clinch, not through aggression. Effective aggression, 8.5 points Anthony Joshua, 8 points Jake Paul. Ring generalship. Jake Paul clearly controlled action and tone. He wanted to be chased, clinched when there was any proximity or impending danger, and land a few punches from awkward, unexpected angles, and that's what happened. Anthony Joshua was likely thinking at this point that he will keep chasing Jake Paul until Paul becomes too tired to continue the foot race. Jake Paul's clinches at 1:53 and 1 minute on the clock were excessively long, so I'd give soft warnings for those. Jake Paul's clinch at 30 seconds remaining was excessively long as well, and he didn't let go right when the ref asked for it, so this is becoming a pattern and I'm giving a hard warning now. Ring generalship, 8.5 points Anthony Joshua, 10 points to Jake Paul. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches or aggressive advances. If we categorize them, high guard went to both fighters, ducking to Jake Paul, bobbing and weaving to Jake Paul, parrying to Anthony Joshua, blocking to Jake Paul, footwork to Jake Paul, and clinching, 9 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 8.850 points to Anthony Joshua and 8.938 points to Jake Paul. A very, very close round, but it goes to Jake Paul, 10-9. And therefore, I have the fight 20-18, Jake Paul after 2. Round 3, Clean punching. In this round, Anthony Joshua lands 11 clean punches and Jake Paul lands a paltry 3. The running total in the fight thus far, 18 for Anthony Joshua, 11 for Jake Paul. Clean punching, 10-7 Anthony Joshua. Effective aggression. At 2:52 on the clock, Jake Paul redefines the up jab by having to reach really high to reach Anthony Joshua's head. Anthony Joshua was much more aggressive than Jake Paul in this round. The constant movement isn't affecting his cardio at all, whereas Jake Paul is visibly very tired and even less able to land in this round than before. Anthony Joshua applied pressure throughout the round and landed even when Jake tried to clinch excessively. Effective aggression, 9.5 points Anthony Joshua, 8 points to Jake Paul. Ring generalship. Anthony Joshua controlled action and tone in this round convincingly. He's amped up the pressure while Jake Paul is tiring and finally caught Jake Paul repeatedly, even though Jake Paul did have some good defensive moments. Jake Paul's clinch at 147 was excessively long, and this is his last hard warning for this now. Jake Paul's clinch at 134 was also excessively long, but Anthony Joshua was able to work and land, so I'll let that one slide. Ring generalship, 10-8 Anthony Joshua. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in round 3 to avoid punches or aggressive attacks. If we categorize them, the high guard went to Anthony Joshua, ducking to Jake Paul, bobbing and weaving to Jake Paul, parrying to both fighters, blocking to both fighters, footwork to Jake Paul, and clinching to Jake Paul. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.409 points to Anthony Joshua and 7.843 points to Jake Paul, a blowout in round 3 in favor of Anthony Joshua 10-9. And I now have the fight 29-28, Jake Paul. Round 4, clean punching. In this round, Anthony Joshua lands 5 clean-landed punches, and Jake Paul outdoes him with 7 clean-landed punches. The running total in the fight thus far, 23 for Anthony Joshua, 18 for Jake Paul. Clean punching, 10-9, Jake Paul. Effective aggression. Jake Paul's waist lock and attempted takedown at 2:45 was too much now. I would deduct 1 point. At 2:15, another waist and ankle lock, and another one at 2:11. I'm giving another point deduction now. At 1:48, an excessively long clinch combined with holding and hitting by Jake Paul. I would have disqualified Jake Paul at this point, but for the sake of argument of scoring all these rounds for you and those of you who are interested, I'll keep scoring them. Effective aggression, Anthony Joshua 9, Jake Paul 8.5 points. Ring generalship. At 119, Jake Paul flies to the ground over Anthony Joshua's left hip as Joshua glides out of the way with no punch landed. At 101, another excessively long clinch by Jake Paul, who also led with his head. Okay, at 42 seconds, Jake Paul throws a wild uppercut that flies back over his own shoulder and totally misses Anthony Joshua, and then he dives toward both Anthony Joshua and the floor. Joshua goes down with him, with his leg on Jake Paul's arm, which is across his own body as he lays on his back. After Jake gets up, he winces while touching his privates, but Joshua's leg was never on them. The ref gave him a lengthy break anyway. Ugh! At 7 seconds remaining, Joshua hit Paul twice while he was down, but Paul was down because of his own failed double leg takedown attempt. Then the ref stops the action for a reprimand instead of taking a point from Paul. This is becoming an utter mess. Ring generalship, Anthony Joshua 10, Jake Paul 8.5. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches or aggressive attacks. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to Joshua, ducking to Paul, bobbing and weaving to both fighters, parrying to Joshua, blocking to both fighters, footwork to Joshua, and clinching to Paul, of course. Taking the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.005 points to Anthony Joshua and 8.879 points to Jake Paul, but then with all the point deductions that I gave Jake Paul for the excessive fouling, I have it 10-6 in round 4 in favor of Anthony Joshua, and therefore I now have the fight 38-35, Anthony Joshua. Round 5, which was the beginning of the end round for Jake Paul. Let's take a look at clean punching. In this round, a huge chasm. Anthony Joshua lands 14 clean-landed punches, his high for the fight so far, and Jake Paul lands only 4. The running total in the fight, 37 for Anthony Joshua, 22 for Jake Paul. Clean punching, 10-7, Anthony Joshua. Effective aggression. Jake Paul with another excessively long clinch to start the round. At 2:26, Jake Paul blocks a punch, then lunges toward Anthony Joshua and suddenly falls down while going for a waistlock again. At 1:34, Jake Paul stumbles and looks down at his feet. I did see him roll the ankle that he referred to after the fight, though. However, I will say, as the round wore on, I didn't see it affecting him very much, so it didn't look like it was too debilitating. At 1:29 on the clock, Jake Paul goes for a double leg takedown while falling down again. No landed punch, but the referee starts a count. I wouldn't have counted a knockdown here, but then again, I would have had Jake Paul disqualified and out of the fight by now, so 1 point deduction. Effective aggression, Anthony Joshua 9.5, Jake Paul 8 points. This is getting really hard to score in the traditional manner. Ring generalship.
At 57 seconds on the clock, Jake Paul shoots a single leg while falling from what looked like a solid straight right landing from Anthony Joshua, though the camera angle made it difficult to know for sure. I'm gonna agree with the ref that this is a knockdown though. Anthony Joshua controlled action and tone. He pursued the whole round while Jake Paul was exhausted, falling down and running away. Ring generalship, 10-8, Anthony Joshua. Let's talk defense in the 5th round, and here are all the defensive moves done in this round to avoid punches or aggressive advances. If we categorize them, I gave high guard to Joshua, ducking to Jake Paul, bobbing and weaving to Jake Paul, parrying to Joshua, blocking to Jake Paul, footwork to Jake Paul, and clinching 8 points to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.524 points to Anthony Joshua and only 7.900 points to Jake Paul, a huge disparity and blowout win in round 5 for Anthony Joshua. And then we have the knockdown and the other point deduction that I took, 10-7 Anthony Joshua. And therefore, I now have the fight 48-42 Anthony Joshua. And of course, round 6 is the round in which Anthony Joshua brutally and suddenly ended the fight. But for those of you who are interested in how that round was going before the stoppage, I'll go ahead and score it for you anyway. Clean punching! In this round, Anthony Joshua landed 9 clean-landed punches before the stoppage, 2 of them in the combo for the stoppage itself. Jake Paul lands only 1 clean-landed punch in this round, and so the fight ends with 46 clean-landed punches by Anthony Joshua that I saw. I may be off by a couple here and there because of camera angles. Jake Paul I saw land 23. Clean punching, 10-7 Anthony Joshua. Effective aggression. At 2:36, Jake Paul ducks under an Anthony Joshua right and then does the fainting goat again, grabbing Joshua's legs. Again, the referee counts a knockdown when there was no punch landed, but again, I would have disqualified Jake Paul long ago for all this falling into Anthony Joshua's legs and grabbing them over and over again. So we're gonna deduct. Effective aggression, 9.5 points Anthony Joshua, 7.5 points Jake Paul. Ring generalship. Anthony Joshua dominated action and tone from beginning to the brutal sudden end of this round in the fight at 1:40 on the clock, with a jab to the body, crushing straight right to the head combo, basically capitalizing on the damage he had done in the previous round without giving Jake Paul any chance to do anything but try to defend. Ring generalship, 10 points Anthony Joshua, almost the lowest you can have, 7.5 points to Jake Paul. Let's talk defense, and here are all the defensive moves done in round 6 to avoid punches or aggressive advances. I gave high guard to Joshua, ducking to Jake Paul, bobbing and weaving to Jake Paul, parrying to both fighters, blocking to Jake Paul, footwork to both fighters, and clinching to both fighters. If we take the 4 scoring criteria together, the algorithm gave 9.409 points to Anthony Joshua and only 7.450 points to Jake Paul. Then, of course, we have the knockdown and the deduction. I would have had this a 10-7 round in favor of Anthony Joshua had the round gone to its conclusion, and I would have had the fight 58-49 Joshua at this point. And now the time has finally come, the time that we all answer the question, did Jake Paul even win a single round versus Anthony Joshua? And the answer is, according to the traditional ways you judge boxing, yes, I had Jake Paul winning round 1 and round 2. Now you could argue, and I invite you to argue it in the comments below, that he ran too much and should not have won any rounds. You're entitled to that opinion. It's a legitimate opinion. However, in round 1, Jake Paul did make Joshua miss and did land more punches. So according to the traditional rules of boxing judging, I gave him rounds 1 and 2. But of course, we need to address the assertion by his brother Logan Paul that he won 4 rounds or at least 3, and whether this is true based on our in-depth detailed analysis and slow-motion watching of the fight, which of course Logan did not have the advantage of when he was watching it live. So did he? Did he win 4 rounds or at least 3? No, not at all. Jake Paul won 2, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to tell me in the comments he didn't even win those 2. So no, Logan, your brother did not win 4 or at least 3 rounds in this fight. However, I'm going to take this opportunity to say I think you're an amazing wrestler, and I'm really enjoying watching you. So of course, that brings up the question, were any of the rounds close enough that they could be overturned in Jake's favor? Well, here they all are for you. The 2 rounds that were close were round 2 and round 4. I gave round 2 already to Jake Paul, and I gave round 4 to Anthony Joshua. So if we were to overturn those rounds and have them go the other way, they're a wash. Round 2 would go to Joshua, and round 4 would go to Paul, so same final score, no difference whatsoever in overturning those 2 rounds. So let's take a look at some interesting fight totals. I know that we score round by round by the 4 scoring criteria, but I think that some of you are interested in seeing overall in the fight, how did each fighter do in each of the 4 scoring categories? Well, if you look at the clean punching column, Anthony Joshua scored 9.5 in aggregate for the fight, and Jake Paul scored 8.333 in aggregate for the whole fight. So Anthony Joshua much better with clean punching. In the next column, Anthony Joshua much better with effective aggression, much better with ring generalship, and Jake Paul did better with defense, of course, because he was running so much, but you gotta give him credit, he has some good defensive moves and did avoid some really good punches. So of course this was a mess of a fight to score with all the fouling, but I ended up with 58-49 Anthony Joshua if you count the 6th round. If you count only the first 5 without the knockout round, I had it 48-42 Anthony Joshua. And so the largest number of punches landed in any round by Anthony Joshua in this fight was 14. For Jake Paul, it was 7. The minimum number of punches landed in any round by Anthony Joshua was actually 2. For Jake Paul, it was 1, and that was in the final round, round 6. The average number of punches landed by Joshua, 8. By Jake Paul, 4. Very, very low numbers by both of them. So now you know the answer to the question, did Jake Paul even win a single round versus Anthony Joshua? Drop a comment below and let me know how you had this fight scored going into the 6th. I'd be really interested to hear if you gave Jake Paul any rounds in this fight. And if you love no BS, in-depth, detailed, round-by-round scoring by the real rules of boxing, subscribe now and click one of these playlists and let it play through. I'm growing a really big library now of all your favorite fights rescored the right way that I think you'll really enjoy. Popping up on your screen, you'll see a link to one of those fights on the left side, and you'll see a link on the right side to my detailed scoring algorithm so you can learn to score like a pro. Keep your eyes open for my forthcoming videos this week on every single punch Anthony Joshua landed on Jake Paul and vice versa. We'll see you again next time.